Mateo slid sideways in the plastic ER chair, one hand clawing at his chest while the other gripped mine so tightly my fingers hurt. "Breathe, Mateo. Look at me. Just breathe." He tried. A wet rattling sound came out instead. I ran to the triage desk again. "Please. He needs oxygen now. He can't breathe." The nurse behind the computer didn't even look up. "Ma'am, everybody here thinks they're dying. My brother's lips are turning blue." She sighed like I was interrupting her lunch break. "You need to wait your turn." Behind me, the waiting room television droned through some late-night game show while Mateo bent forward, coughing into his sleeve. Two people who'd arrived after us were suddenly called through the double doors. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I stared at the nurse. They got here after us, no available beds. Then, Dr. Leonard Vale walked past the desk laughing with another doctor about a golf tournament. I stepped directly in front of him. "Please," I said. "Something's wrong with him." Dr. Vale glanced toward Mateo for maybe 2 seconds. "He's anxious," he said flatly. "He can wait." Mateo tried to stand and nearly collapsed beside the chair. That was the moment I realized nobody in that hospital was coming to help us. And a few minutes later, a janitor leaned close to me and whispered 4 words that changed everything. "You should record this." I looked back at Mateo. His breathing sounded worse now, thicker somehow, like liquid trapped in his lungs. Every inhale ended with a sharp gasp that made people in nearby chairs glance over before quickly looking away again. We'd arrived at the ER a little after 8 that night. It was now 2:13 in the morning. 6 hours. 6 straight hours of nurses telling me to sit down, calm down, stop panicking. 6 hours of watching my 17-year-old brother get weaker. Mateo had lived with me ever since our mother died 3 years earlier. Foster care split us apart twice before I fought to get legal guardianship. I worked double shifts at a grocery store just to keep us in our tiny apartment. And now I was watching him die under fluorescent hospital lights while people with better clothes and better insurance got called first. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and hit record. At first, I only wanted proof that they were ignoring him. Then I heard one nurse whisper to another behind the desk, "If he crashes, then they'll take him." I froze. Not if he gets worse. If he crashes, like they were waiting for it. I slowly raised the phone higher. Across the room, Dr. Vale noticed me recording. His expression changed instantly. Mateo grabbed my sleeve weakly. "Gina," he whispered. I knelt beside him. His fingers were ice cold. I can't feel my hands. Gina dragged Mateo's chair closer to the nurse's station, one squeaking inch at a time. Nobody stopped her. Nobody helped either. The closer they got to the desk, the harder it became for the staff to pretend they couldn't see him. Mateo's breathing came in short, uneven pulls. Every few seconds he pressed his fist against his ribs like he was trying to hold himself together. My phone camera shook as I kept recording. "Time is now 2:21 a.m., I whispered into it. I didn't even know why I said it at first. Then I realized I wanted proof. Proof that they'd watched him deteriorate minute by minute. Mateo leaned his head against the wall behind him. "Sorry." "Stop apologizing. You have work tomorrow." I said stop. He gave a weak smile that disappeared almost immediately when another coughing fit hit him. Blood dotted the sleeve of his hoodie. My stomach dropped. I looked toward the nurse's station. He's coughing blood. One nurse glanced over before returning to her monitor. Another rolled her chair backward and disappeared through the double doors. Nobody came. I crouched beside Mateo. "Stay awake, okay? Talk to me." He swallowed hard. "Remember that apartment we saw with the broken elevator?" I blinked. "What?" "The one you said we'd move out of after 6 months. Despite everything, I almost laughed. That place was horrible." "You still made it feel okay." His voice sounded thin now, drained. "We finally got out," he whispered. "Didn't want to mess that up." A cold knot formed in my chest. "What are you talking about?" I knew something was wrong weeks ago. He avoided my eyes. Chest pain, getting dizzy, but you were already working all the time. I stared at him. You hid this from me? We don't have insurance, Gina. The words hit harder than I expected because part of me had thought the same thing before bringing him here. I'd spent nearly an hour earlier debating whether urgent care would be cheaper. And now, he could barely breathe. A sharp voice interrupted us. You need to stop filming, staff. I looked up. Another nurse stood over me with folded arms. I'm recording because nobody's helping him. You're creating drama in the waiting room. My brother is dying. If you continue disrupting operations, security can remove you. I looked at Mateo's wristband while she spoke. Yellow. Not red. Not critical. Yellow. 2 chairs away sat a man holding an ice pack against his wrist with a red priority band already clipped around his arm. I stood abruptly. Why is his chart marked lower priority? The nurse ignored me and walked off. A younger nurse passing nearby slowed for half a second. Quietly, without looking at me, she whispered, I'm not allowed to change his chart. I stepped toward her. What does that mean? Before she could answer, Dr. Vale's voice cut across the hallway. Emily. The young nurse froze immediately. Dr. Vale approached with a hard expression. Stop feeding her panic. I was just. Back to work. She hurried away. Then Mateo suddenly doubled over. A violent cough tore through him, spraying blood across my sleeve. People in the waiting room gasped. A woman stood up. Someone else yelled for help. Behind the desk, monitor alarms started going off. I wrapped my arm around Mateo as his body trembled. Help him! I screamed. For the first time all night, Dr. Vale finally turned fully toward us. His eyes locked onto my phone, and in a low, controlled voice he said, Put the phone down. Now. I tightened my grip on the phone instead. No, the entire waiting room had gone quiet except for Mateo's choking breaths. Dr. Vale stepped closer. You are interfering with patient care. I laughed once because it sounded insane. What patient care? A few people nearby muttered in agreement. Mateo slipped lower in the chair, shaking now. His head rolled against my shoulder while he struggled to stay conscious. An older man across the room stood up slowly. That kid's been sitting here all night. Another woman pulled out her phone. I've been here 4 hours myself. Suddenly, cameras were everywhere. Dr. Vale noticed immediately. His voice changed. Softer. Controlled. Ma'am, we understand you're upset. Upset? I snapped. You said he was anxious while he was turning blue. Security guards appeared near the entrance. One of them spoke carefully. Hospital policy prohibits recording staff without consent. Then help him, somebody shouted from the back. More voices joined in. The waiting room transformed in seconds from exhausted silence into angry noise. Dr. Vale motioned for me to follow him away from the crowd. I didn't move. Your brother already received evaluation, he said through clenched teeth. You are escalating this unnecessarily. I stared at him. Wait, I said slowly. What evaluation? He hesitated. And one nurse accidentally answered before thinking. The scans came back hours ago. The entire hallway froze. The nurse's face drained white. I stepped forward instantly. What scans? Dr. Vale shot the nurse a furious look. They were inconclusive, he said quickly. You never told me he had scans. There was no reason to alarm you? No reason? My voice cracked. He's coughing blood. Right then, a respiratory therapist pushed through the double doors carrying equipment. She took one look at Mateo and stopped cold. Why is this patient still out here? Nobody answered. She looked directly at Dr. Vale. He should already be in ICU. Silence slammed across the waiting room. I watched staff members exchange nervous looks. Not confused, nervous. Like they'd all just realized someone had said the wrong thing in front of witnesses. Security moved closer again. If recording continues, one guard warned, phones may be confiscated. Instead of stopping, more people raised their cameras. One man started live streaming. Dr. Vale's calm expression finally cracked. Mateo suddenly jerked hard in the chair beside me. His eyes rolled halfway back. Mateo? A younger nurse, the same one from earlier, rushed past pretending to adjust his blanket. Something small pressed into my hand. Then she walked away without looking at me. I unfolded the paper. 3 words were written across it. Check triage update. Below that was a time. 8:41. Before I could process it, Mateo's entire body went limp. He crashed sideways out of the chair and slammed onto the hospital floor. The waiting room exploded into screams. Mateo. I dropped beside him as his body twitched against the tile floor. His skin had turned gray. Foam gathered at the corner of his mouth. For half a second, nobody moved. Then suddenly doctors and nurses rushed toward him all at once. Get a gurney, move back, pulse is dropping. The same people who ignored him for 6 hours were now sprinting. I tried following as they lifted Mateo onto a stretcher, but a security guard blocked me near the double doors. You can't go in there. That's my brother. They're working on him. The doors slammed shut between us. I could still hear voices through the narrow glass windows. Prep intubation. Where's respiratory? Pressure's crashing. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. Then I remembered the note. 8:41. I opened the hospital app they'd made me download during check-in. Mateo's patient chart was still partially visible. Triage update, 8:41 p.m. I tapped it. My stomach turned. Original assessment, critical respiratory distress. Updated assessment, non-urgent anxiety symptoms. Updated by Dr. Leonard Vale. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. He changed it. He saw what was happening and changed it anyway. I replayed parts of my recording with the volume turned up. At first, it was just background noise, phones ringing, nurses talking, carts moving. Then I heard Dr. Vale's voice clearly from earlier near the desk. We're already over IQ capacity. Stabilize him later. I stopped breathing for a second. This wasn't neglect. It was deliberate. The younger nurse appeared beside me, so suddenly I flinched. Her badge read Emily. You need to back up what you recorded, she whispered urgently. You knew? Her eyes filled immediately. Not everything. But he does this during overcrowded nights. Does what? She glanced toward the treatment room doors. If patients don't have insurance, charts get downgraded unless they completely crash. Her voice shook. Administration tracks IQ numbers. Bonuses depend on keeping admissions low. I felt sick. How many people? I don't know. Inside the ER, alarms started blaring again. Emily stepped back fast as several administrators stormed into the waiting room wearing suits over wrinkled dress shirts. One pointed directly at me. Who uploaded the video? I looked down at my phone. Without even thinking about it, I opened social media and posted every clip I had. Mateo gasping for air. The nurse saying, "Wait your turn." Dr. Vale walking past him. The timestamp chart update. Upload complete. Within minutes, notifications exploded across my screen. Local reporters. Thousands of shares. News stations requesting comment. One administrator grabbed another doctor and hissed, "Get this contained now." Then, Dr. Vale burst through the ER doors. For the first time all night, he looked afraid. You had no right. How many people have you done this to? I shouted. The entire waiting room went silent again. Dr. Vale opened his mouth and stopped when 2 police officers entered through the front entrance. One officer walked straight toward him. Dr. Vale, he said evenly, we need to speak with you immediately. By sunrise, every local news station was running the same footage on repeat. Mateo collapsing in the waiting room, the nurse saying, "Everybody here thinks they're dying." Dr. Vale walking past us without stopping, and the timestamp showing Mateo's chart had been changed from critical respiratory distress to anxiety symptoms. I sat alone in the IQ hallway staring at my phone while reporters crowded outside the hospital entrance below. The hospital released a statement just after 7 in the morning. Due to unusually high patient volume, unfortunate communication errors occurred during intake procedures. Communication errors. I almost threw my phone across the room. Then investigators arrived. Not hospital investigators, state investigators. They requested the full recording before noon. I handed over everything. Every timestamp. Every conversation. Every second Mateo struggled to breathe while people ignored him. And once they heard the full audio, the hospital's story collapsed immediately. One recording captured two nurses whispering near the station. Vale said uninsured patients wait unless they completely tank. Another voice answered nervously, "What if this one dies out there?" Then Dr. Vale himself, "We can't trigger another ICU admission tonight." The investigator listening beside me removed his headphones slowly. "How long has this been happening?" he asked. I didn't answer, because by then I already knew this was bigger than Mateo. Emily, the younger nurse, gave a formal statement the same afternoon. Hands shaking, voice cracking, she admitted staff had been pressured for months to downgrade certain emergency cases during overcrowded shifts, especially uninsured ones. Investigators pulled records from previous nights connected to Dr. Vale's login credentials. Dozens of altered triage updates appeared. Some patients had returned hours later in worse condition. Two families hired attorneys before the week ended. Meanwhile, Mateo was still unconscious after emergency surgery. A pulmonary embolism, one EQ doctor explained quietly. A severe blood clot had blocked blood flow through his lungs. "You brought him in just in time," the doctor said carefully. But later, away from the others, a nurse admitted the truth. Another hour probably would have killed him. When Mateo finally woke up, tubes covered half his face. I grabbed his hand so fast the heart monitor jumped. His eyes opened slowly. "Hey," I whispered. He looked confused at first, then embarrassed. "Sorry," he rasped weakly. "For what? Causing all this?" Something inside me broke hearing that. Not anger, not relief, just exhaustion. Because after everything, he still thought being sick was an inconvenience to other people. I leaned forward carefully against the hospital bed. "You never apologize for needing help again," I said. Outside the hospital, protesters gathered every day that week. Some carried signs demanding criminal charges. Others held photos of relatives they claimed had also been ignored there. News vans lined the street from morning until night. Dr. Vale was suspended within 48 hours. 2 weeks later, the state medical board permanently revoked his license after reviewing the recordings and altered chart history. Several administrators resigned before internal emails leaked online showing financial pressure to reduce ICU admissions tied to performance bonuses. The lawsuits came fast after that. The hospital network eventually agreed to a massive settlement along with mandatory oversight reforms. Emily became the key whistleblower in the investigation. Without her testimony, most staff would have stayed silent out of fear. As for me, the attention never fully stopped. Some strangers called me brave. Others accused me of destroying careers. But none of them sat in that waiting room watching someone they loved turn blue, while doctors walked by pretending not to see him. Months later, Mateo and I moved into a quieter apartment across town near the community college he planned to attend once he fully recovered. He still got tired easily, still had follow-up appointments. But he stopped hiding symptoms. Stopped pretending pain wasn't serious. One evening, while unpacking boxes, he found the old phone I used that night. "You still kept it?" I looked at the cracked screen for a long moment. Every second on that device changed our lives. "Yeah," I said softly. "I kept it." A few weeks later, I passed the hospital again for the first time since everything happened. The entrance looked different now. New staff, new administration, and mounted beside the sliding doors was a large metal sign. "All emergency patients ARE treated regardless of insurance status." I stood there reading it while ambulances pulled into the bay behind me. Then I turned, and walked away. They ignored her when she begged for help, until the entire country heard what happened in that waiting room.